Lionel, is that you?
There, I think I got it.
Kelly,
Yeah, it's Lionel.
have you got a job yet?
No, I put another application into the same job because they reposted it.
What's the job?
It's working for the city and as a landscape person.
Okay, well,
Labor.
wouldn't that be kind of hard work for an old guy?
No, I do it now at the park.
Yeah, but you do it at your pace.
Well, no, this would be 3 days a week.
Yeah, but what if they said to you, okay, shovel this wheelbarrow full of crap into that wheelbarrow full of crap? That would just about kill a guy your age.
No, that's what I do at the park. There's a lot of crap there at the park.
Who's laughing?
Always shoveling it into a cart, not a.
Was that you laughing, Daniel?
It was. It was.
Well.
That was a colorful description. I liked it. It was fun.
Well, it's true.
It makes something like getting to be an old dude sound, still somewhat fun.
Yeah, like it's like
good exercise for me. So
absolutely.
Well, yeah, it's good exercise, but
between work, now that I'm not working micro trains, when I go over to the park, I put about 2 miles of walking.
Why don't you contact the guys over at Athearn and see if you can help them lower their sales?
I would love that. I would love to do that, but I read the qualifications for the job, and it's way above my head. Really
above your pay grade.
Yeah, well, I don't have the necessary skills. The qualifications do not match what I know.
You could always bluff your way in.
Yeah,
no,
bluffing.
I don't do that. I only do that in the AML. I bluff my way in for that.
Yeah. Best thing I ever heard, and I heard it when I was like 22 or 23 by my friend Theodore, who I used to curl with. The Olympics are over now. Curling in Canada. And I'll never forget, I was talking to him about something. I was just a young lad. And he says, don't forget, for the rest of your life, bullshit baffles brains.
And that's the new description for this podcast.
Yeah, and I stuck that in my back pocket, and I've pulled it out every once in a while.
Wow.
Marcus, do we have time for a story before we get our guest John in here?
Let's go ahead with it. We
All
sure
right.
do.
It would happen today, which is this show was recorded a couple of weeks ago, probably 2 or 3 weeks ago. But I went to see the cardiologist that looked after me when I had my heart attack last April. And so I go in the room, and he eventually comes in, and first his original guy comes in, and we're talking for a minute. And then I said something to the effect of, well, you can Google that. And he stops and he looks at me. You're the Google guy. I remember you now. And he turns to his young doctor learning to be a cardiologist. And he says, you will never believe. We were halfway. This guy was having a serious heart attack. We were halfway through it. And I paused for a minute. And he says, Google is your friend. And he says, the guy's having a heart attack. And he starts making me laugh. And I'm like, I got to do this properly. And it's like his right artery is blocked, and I'm trying to fix him, and he's making jokes. So I found that to be quite. I found that to be. He remembered me from that. So apparently, I said, "So do people not do?" He said, "No."
It's just not something people do.
That's probably
I'm thinking if you can't chuckle in the face of your own mortality, laugh away.
My wife says it's your coping mechanism. I said, I suppose, but it seemed like the ideal time. All right, let's get our guest in here. Jon Stackpole. Derek, we're going to do something. Kelly, this is your job. We're going to do something very different. Usually when a guest is on for his second part of his interview, we put that on the Patreon channel.
Right.
But because our guest, Jon Stackpole, was so interesting and his personal life and his dad's hobby shop, and we discovered all kinds of cool stuff talking to him, and we never got around to talking about Athearn, which is he's the lead project engineer for long-term projects. I think it's what it was. I know
sounds right.
I know he's not the director of the foundation for the North Carolina Transportation Museum, because that's what Marcus does. But description was something like that. So anyways, I feel it's imperative for us and only fair to our guest, Jon, to also put this on the free channel.
Wow.
So at the appropriate moment, Kelly, you're going to have to step in and go, hey, it's time for
White Rose Hobby.
Yeah. So when you feel it's the appropriate moment, step in and say, it's a time for a commercial break.
Okay.
All right. Because I imagine they sell lots of Athearn stuff.
That's one of the things I was just going to look at.
Well, why don't you? And while you're doing it, see if you can find a word with one L in it and another word with two L's in it.
I got one already.
I don't want to get to the end of the show and you go, I couldn't think of anything.
I got one already in the
In the bin?
In the chute.
All right. Well, it can't be Daniel.
No, I wouldn't do that.
Although that would be a perfectly acceptable answer. I mean,
yeah, exactly. Jon, come on in here.
when we last spoke with our intrepid product designer, he was at Cabela's thinking about Athearn.
Having
worked on that all day.
Yeah.
Previously on a modeler's life.
When we last left our hero, he was telling us all about his father's hobby shop. Now, I feel like when we last left our hero, Jon, he had moved to Oregon and had bought a fairly decent size plot of land that he could build himself a proper working space. I believe he said 10 by 20 or 12 by 20 outbuilding. That this is where he spent all his time doing all his stuff.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
See,
and so White Rose Hobbies does have Athearn. Would anyone care to guess how many Athearn items they have on their website?
226.
Oh,
6,000.
Y'all are all off. 2,991 listed here. So.
Holy moly!
I was missing a whole 0 digit.
Do you know? I was only off by 2,988. And does it say which ones were designed by our guest, Jon Stackpole?
I don't see a filter for that, but they ought to add that.
Yeah, exactly. So if I remember right, Jon, so we're going to get right to the Athearn stuff, Jon, because we screwed around last week in part 1 of the 37-part Jon Stackpole trilogy. We were talking, and then it turned out you were a really interesting guy. Your dad's a really interesting guy that's owned a hobby shop for 30 years. We discovered a really cool N-scale vehicle guy through your dad's hobby shop.
Yep. Just
endless stuff. We got to get those guys on our it's called IG Makes. Man, they have some really cool N-scale stuff. And if we knew any N-scalers.
Right? If only
we knew N-scalers. I like how there's like a lot of their stuff says, this is not a toy. Man, their painted stuff is spectacular. Oh, well. All right. That's enough of that because now we're going to get down that topic. So, Jon, the last I remember is you had moved to Oregon. How do you say Is it Oregon or Oregon?
Oregon.
Yeah. See,
depends on what part of the state you're from.
I don't know. I think it's Oregon. It's kind of like Toronto. The second G is really barely pronounced. Oregon. It can be, and it can sound. It sounds like Oregin. Oregon. You'd moved there 2022. Is that right?
2015.
Oh yeah, but you got hooked up with Athearn around 2022.
2021.
Well, that was closer though.
It was around 2022.
And so did I get it correct? You're the lead engineer for long-term projects?
You can call me an engineer like a choo-choo, but I'm not an engineer with a capital E. Engineer. Yeah. Product manager is my title.
Product manager.
Yeah. lead product developer for long lead product.
And at any time when you've listened to this podcast, have you ever thought to yourself, geez, that Lionel, he really knows a lot of stuff? Because as you're quickly finding out, I'm assuming you're starting to realize that that's not the case.
Oh, I just assume that's what the skip 5 button was for.
He's stalking you.
So tell me again, it's the lead project engineer? Or just a project?
Product manager is my
product
title.
Manager.
Product
okay.
manager, yeah.
And is there other guys that do your job, or are you the only guy?
By role, I'm the only person that does this. We are mentoring and expanding those responsibilities to others on the team, and we have been posting a job position which will double my position. So we are hoping to bring in more long lead developers.
You know the hobby's dying, right?
Might be.
Like why? Oh yeah, that's right. That's what we wanted to talk to him about. You made a great analogy right at the end of our last podcast last week. Notice how we say last week. It seemed like we're really organized. Last week, you made this really cool analogy of what you thought the hobby was. You mentioned it was at a tipping point. Can you describe it to us again? What that was?
Oh, shoot. I wish you had edited and posted that so I could listen to it.
I like
This will be
having
so
John
much more
on. This is
entertaining.
great.
When I hear the dial tone, I know it's over.
Are you sure Kelly couldn't be qualified for this job?
Not if you want to keep the business going.
That's true.
On the job description when I applied, it said must speak Mandarin.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I don't speak a lick, so
So, John,
we're flexible.
I think when we were talking about the hobby, the state of the hobby, we were asked, is the hobby dying or growing? And you kind of mentioned something along the lines of it's evolving because
the caterpillars in the cocoon turning into goo,
right?
And if we're not careful as an industry, we might end up in some science class hanging on the wall instead of being a butterfly.
So So are there sort of long-term threats to the hobby that you see?
Well, there are a lot. There's a lot of things out there, and I will speak generally and not for Athearn at this point. But the biggest threat is cost.
Yeah.
Being an Athearn employee, everyone's like, bring back Blue Box. Bring back Blue Box. Well, we've done it in the past, and they haven't sold. And at this point, people don't actually want Blue Box kits. They want Genesis models and kits, but they want to pay Blue Box pricing. They want to, and honestly, the biggest competitor to Athearn right now is Irv Athearn. He flooded the market with kits. There's so many that every train show you go to, there's going to be several vendors that have tables of them. And we can buy them from the vendor for less than we can get the factory to make them today.
Well, that suggests that they're never coming back.
I won't say never, because I would, we all grew up building kits.
Yeah.
Building inexpensive kits that, it didn't hurt when you make a mistake, like dropping a soldering iron on it.
Ooh.
But
that would hurt.
It's that portion of the market has been filled for a long time by the secondhand market, to the point where the manufacturing component of that has practically disappeared.
And honestly, if there was a demand for those types of kits, other people will be making them too, right? But nobody's really making those types of kits these days.
Yeah. It's not Athearn saying no, we can't do it. It's basically the whole industry. And there's going to be a point when that secondhand market does dry up, and then we're going to have a knowledge gap. We're not going to have just go pick up a cheap Tyco to practice weathering on, because they're not going to be out there anymore.
Oh,
man, that seems like that's an awful long time in the future. I'm getting ready to go to a train show on Saturday. and I bet you at least 4 vendors will have just dozens upon dozens of boxes of Athearn Blue Box.
Yeah.
And
There is.
But
I mean, it is an issue, but there's a good pad in there before that happens.
but at some
If
point,
you don't look towards the future, it's going to catch you with your pants down.
Right.
You got to be looking out there, like, what are the existential threats to the business? Cost is by far one of them, and we all have experienced cost in the last year with the tariffs and shipping during COVID. The price of shipping was just exponentially through the roof compared to what it usually is. And who ate that cost? The manufacturers did, for the most part. Yeah.
That's something that's not very often covered, is the cost of shipping increases. It had increased so significantly. Like, we think about manufacturer costs and margins through the lens of tariffs, but you're right, the cost of a container quadrupled for a number of years there.
It more than quadrupled.
Yeah,
it was high.
It was like crazy. It was like highest bidder kind of thing, wasn't it, there for about a year or so? Yeah, and they were stacking up and trying to get them out, we were talking to Otto von Drack, the editor of Railroad Model Craftsman, which, by the way, is expanding by 8 pages apparently, due to advertising and things like that, because they have a good income from advertisers. So they're expanding the magazine by 8 pages permanently.
Is that because we put a bigger ad in?
Because we're going to put in a bigger ad, yeah.
Wow.
And Mike Lindsay, the guy who's the ad manager, when I said, well, we're going to stop our little, 1/12 of a page and maybe go to a quarter of a page, he says, I'm still going to give you a good deal. I said, okay, well, that's perfect. They're encouraging people, but like we were talking, what was I going to say? It was really good too, but the magazine is increasing, and like I was at again for the second time in 7 days. I was at Colonial Hobbies, which I haven't been to in 30 plus years. They've got like 8 train magazines, so the hobby is vital. It's just, I think you hit the nail on the head. Everybody says it's changing, but I think you're closing in on what the changes are. It's like that's what it really is.
And if we want to get down to the nuts and bolts of it, I think the biggest way it's going to change is in product offerings. You think back 20, 30 years ago. Let's talk about the BL2. This is one of my favorite locomotives. Lifelike came out with the Proto 2000 BL2. Nobody touched it for decades, because if you modeled and you wanted a BL2, there was one available. So that's what you bought. And you had your go-to vendors for your Jeeps, your F units. If you wanted bigger model power, we all kind of stayed in our own lanes because there was a lot of things out there. And you could make a tool that either was kind of generic and covered lots of phases and variations, or you got specific, but you kind of own that category. And railroading has changed. As we've consolidated down to just a handful of Class 1s, there's not as much variety out there. The maintenance departments like working on GEs, or they like working on EMDs, but they don't like having EMDs and GEs in their shop. So the locomotive motive power is homogenizing out there, and there's fewer and fewer models available. So what you're going to see is more of the model railroading manufacturers competing with the same model, because that's what's out there.
Right, because everybody's running GEVOs and ACEs, and then there's only it's not the world where there was a SD 38, 39, 40, 40-2, 45, 45X. Like, that sort of variety is gone from the modern railroading scene.
It really is, yeah. Or it has shifted depending on how you view. I mean, we're seeing a lot more interest in regionals and short lines.
And Athearn does a lot of regionals and short lines, more so than I think most manufacturers, right?
It certainly feels like we do, yeah. I mean, we have the product suggestions email or contact form on our website that people can write in. And when we are looking to do a project, say we are going to do a Jeep 9 run, and we know the timing sequence since the last time we've done certain railroads, and we'll say, oh, it's about time to run these railroads again. But let's go to the product suggestion and see what people are asking for. And you'll be surprised. There are some regional railroads that are quite popular and are worth doing.
Yeah, like you guys have run so many Reading and Northern locomotives that I can't even buy them all. I don't even have them all. It's pretty impressive how quickly those are coming out. But I think you're different from other manufacturers in that way, because a friend was at Springfield and talked to another manufacturer and asked them, hey, are you going to do regionals? And they basically said, we're not interested in doing regionals. We just want to do class ones. And so I do think that's an interesting thing about Athearn that others aren't doing.
It must be hard to decide which regional to do. I mean, there must be countless amounts of research to try to guess what the public wants, eh? I'm guessing.
Yeah, I mean, we if you are a member of Athearn's newsletter or follow us on social media, we're pretty regularly putting out surveys to our customer base and asking them very pointed questions like, what do you model? What are you interested in? How do you model? Like, what products do you use? And that helps direct us. So we have a pretty good handle on where the majority of the Athearn customers are, what they enjoy modeling, and we can compare that against our competitors and ourselves and see where the holes are and where there might be a profitable niche to live in.
Which is a huge part of I mean, I'm just going through the Athearn page now, and I mean, this Model 40 locomotive, like, how cool is that? Like, how would you guys ever decide to come up with that? That thing is, that's slick.
I love that. I mean, I think there was only 12 of those built, and 11 of them are still operatable.
Really?
And they were built in 1939. I don't. Someone will fact check me on that, but yeah, I mean, that was one of the few diesel locomotives that came out during before World War II, and they built so few of them, and it's a fun little guy. But that model specific, Athearn actually inherited. That was a roundhouse MDC model. One of the last locomotive they built before Athearn acquired that company.
John, I got one of the questions our buddy David had, who couldn't be here tonight because he works for, well, let's just say he has a very important job and has to wake up early.
So, he works for Pepsi, doesn't he?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, the world's number one soft drink.
Yeah, really.
So you can fill in the blank with your personal opinion, but he was wondering because he noted that Athearn still sells in hobby shops, and what you think sort of obviously speaking not on behalf of Athearn, but like I guess as an Athearn's an old guard in the hobby, still work with hobby shops, kind of do things like the old-fashioned way in that regard, complementary, and he was wondering sort of the future of hobby shops and future of Athearn in hobby shops, and might we see, for example, train sets again, or will Athearn continue selling to hobby shops like you have been for decades and decades?
And don't answer any question you don't want to answer. Don't say anything you don't want to say.
Yeah. Dr. Pepper's way better than Pepsi. Sorry, that wasn't the question.
Coke's better than all of them. So,
oh, come on, Marcus.
So Athearn's going to continue to support retail stores, and I personally feel like that's a very important part of the hobby, even though we're seeing store after store closes, not because they're really not profitable, but because they're so specialized and you need to have so much knowledge. You can't buy a hobby shop and make it profitable without that background knowledge. And the owners of those stores are aging out of the workforce without a succession plan. So unfortunately, we're seeing a lot of retailers close, but it's really important. Like as the internet is growing, there's a lot of information there, but that information isn't vetted. You can go to YouTube and you can watch any Joe Schmo pick up a French horn and play, and they'll say that they're expert and this is the way to do it. But you don't know if that's real or not. when you walk into a hobby shop and there's usually a grizzled, gruffy old guy behind the counter,
Yeah.
you ask them a question and they're going to give you the straight dope, and they'll also help steer you. And that's what I love about the hobby is, when I'm at this Amherst train show and kids walk into the booth, I don't care who I'm having a conversation with. I'm going to step away and talk to the kids, because that's the future of the hobby. We want to get them excited, interested, see what makes them tick, and just see where we can encourage them, and you just kind of nudge them down the track a little further. And I think that's what retail stores, the hobby shops, are really good at. So when someone takes home their DCC sound Athearn Genesis locomotive with all the bells and whistles, and they can't figure out how to turn off the bell, they can go to a retail store and they say, well, here's how you do it. And, you might want to consider this product next. And did you know you could, customize the speed table or all these other things? And that's as myself personally, but also Athearn as a business model, we want to see hobby shops, because they are ambassadors to the hobby.
And they're where you go when you can touch and look at stuff. And I mean, I was in Colonial Hobbies today, and I mean, they had a whole bunch of Athearn locomotives in their display case, and I'm standing there looking at them going, well, that one's cool. I should buy that. I have no need for it, but it's really cool to look at. Yeah. But I think to your discussion about the tipping point, I think we're in a real flux, because we have two people that are regulars on our show, the guys that sponsor our show, whiterosehobbies.com. Where are they located there, Kelly?
Oh, they're located on 4401 West Market Street, which was the old Lincoln Highway. Their zip code is 17408, and their phone number is 717-505-8676.
That's right.
And guess what?
That's right there. What?
They're right down the street from the Ben Franklin RV Park. Can you believe that?
I can't believe it. That's probably the highlight. Man. That's probably the highlight of going there, right there in York, Pennsylvania.
Yeah. You go down, you spend the night there, and then you go to the hobby shop.
Yeah, and then spend all day at the hobby shop, and then go back and spend the rest of the night in the. And you don't even need. All you need is a spot. You don't need a trailer or a tent. You could just lay on the ground.
Really, and get
so
snacks
long,
too.
Yeah, so long as you're. Yeah, you can be food. You can be You can be a bear's snack.
Always a good idea.
But the guys that have White Rose Hobbies, and they're only 3, 4, 5 years into it, 6 or 7, I don't know. What's their names? Tom and
Ryan
Toman and Tom Robinson. Ryan started it years ago in his bedroom or something, but they're young guys. They're in their 30s, and they're building a very vibrant business. And also in Independence, Missouri, home of the Harry S. Truman Presidential Library, is our pal Stephen Atwell, who has an incredibly successful hobby shop that he started, 6-7 years ago with his dad in his basement. So at the same time, there seems to be a fear that we're losing hobby shops. Also, I feel like some of them are coming online. I think the whole hobby is changing, because I think it's growing at the same time because it's so exposed to the world now. I think we're getting a lot more fringe modelers, if that's a good way of putting it, or fringe hobbyists that have discovered it online and get really interested. And so it's a real,
think about COVID. How many people picked up baking sourdough bread? We were all looking for hobbies, but it also forced basically the world to change on how we interacted. And all those old school hobby shops who basically, if something sells out on the shelf, they look for something to order to fill it. They don't have computerized inventory to get them online. I mean, they may have a placeholder for a website. They may have a Google page, but they don't have online stores, and it's beyond their capability to really start an online store. So these young guys who have grown up in online shopping, they understand the concepts of what it takes to be successful online. And that's what you're seeing is, very quickly this industry went from let's go down to the hobby shop like we go down to the barber shop or a bookstore and just kind of hang out, to, geez, I can't go anywhere from my basement. I might as well order it online.
Yeah. And now the problem is delivery prices are starting to become a problem, because, you'll find something you think is a good price, and then you add on $19 delivery, and it's like, well, that took the fun out of it pretty quickly. And it's the age-old problem with model railroading. People will moan and groan about a locomotive costing $299, which will last you 20 plus years, and the quality that they're built now, they last decades. And yet, like I often say, it'll cost me $400 to go to a Leaf game, and that lasts 3 hours.
Right.
Plus, you got to drive there and drive back.
And the same guys already have $300 locomotives in their closet.
Yeah.
They didn't have a problem before, but they have a problem now.
Yeah. So there's advantages to online sales for sure, and the larger stores do more volume and they can work on a smaller margin. So you can start to see price competitiveness between the online stores.
Yeah, but they all whether it's a new. I'm thinking along the lines of back when we had this show at the expo in Medford. A family came in. They said, "Oh, we're buying this building. We're going to have a hobby shop. Blah blah blah." And the one question I asked the father was, "Are you going to have a computer presence or internet presence?" And he looked at me like I was, deer in the headlights. And of course, he never did that, and then he's no longer in business. So it's you can have that presence. I mean, I wish the hobby shop here had a better presence, but they're more interested in remote control and bicycles.
Yeah, you need to know more than model trains to be successful at selling model trains these days.
But on the other side of that coin, Athearn is looking to hire a new project engineer to work with you. So, I mean, there must be either they think you're really lazy, or there's a reason to hire. There's, things must be active enough to the point where Athearn's going, well, let's get another guy in here and see if we can't produce some more quality stuff like we do.
Yeah, well, it's part of the business plan. You have to remain relevant. You have to be competitive, and there's enough work out there and enough plans to future plans to work on projects. And that's basically what it's been framed at is. When I came in the company, I had several goals, some small, some large. This is what I'd like to outline for our strategy, our vision for the future. And as we've gone down that road, it's become very apparent that we need more resources to do it. Now, when we get there, it's going to be very profitable.
Mm.
But so it's an investment in the future to keep us moving.
And they must be, I mean, if I was those guys, I'd be thinking, well, how fortunate are we that this guy showed up?
Yeah, seriously. Mm-hmm. So, John, I guess in your role with like longer term projects, how long does one of these longer term projects take from start to finish?
How long do they take, or how long are they supposed to take?
Well, let's talk about both.
When you research a new project, I like to think it takes me about a month to research a freight car project. And then there's the design stage and the refinement stage and the tooling and test shots, and then you get the decoration samples. If everything is moving smoothly, with no other complications, no other hiccups in the process, and you can get everything on the right schedule, that's probably a 12 to 18 month process for a freight car. Locomotives, when you get to the Genesis level, we're talking about minute details that matter.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the most complicated projects I worked on was the AC4400CW project. And I think with everything we tooled, we just discovered we missed a cab variation. So we just tooled our 49th cab.
Oh, come on.
So when people ask, why don't you offer undecorated kits? you are going to get a box the size of a steamer trunk with all the different pieces, and it is an expensive fortune. And at the end of the day, you'll just get one locomotive out of it.
Right.
There's so many different parts, but you need to recognize what could change, what does change, so that you create your tooling smartly. So that if there is a variation, that you can just make a minor change while they're hanging the tools instead of having to bring out a whole nother mold system to make it. So you need to think ahead, not just, well, we're offering these 6 models. What about the other, 2,000 that you could offer?
Yeah, so I mean, if you are having to design and organize 48 or 49 different cabs, I mean, I would imagine a Genesis locomotive is taking you years from start to finish.
Yeah.
And so I would imagine then if you brought in another project manager, then you could shorten the lead time on these because you could handle more projects at once.
Certainly, that is the hope. And it's not. I think everyone that works in the hobby has a little bit of ADHD. We're always finding a new squirrel to work on. But so while I'm working on one project and I'm looking through my resources for information, I may run into a resource. Like just the other day, I came across some photos of some stock cars that I've had a passing interest in. And so I spent half an hour researching these and saving resources because I'm like, someday in the future, I'm going to get to this project and it'll be handy to have this information.
Well, I was just going to ask, I mean, by the time a project that's like 3 years long gets here, are you excited to see it or are you tired of looking at it? And maybe it sounds like side quests like the paddle car are an antidote to like the length of a project.
Yeah, it does. It keeps you sane. The biggest project, I think the most expected project from Athearn is our Surfliner Amtrak California cars, which have been almost 7 years in the making at this point.
Wow.
I am ready for this to be done. It's almost
a long time.
Yeah.
It's turned from a comedy to a tragedy at this point. But they will be finished.
But that's how the hobby's changed, because when Irv Athearn was building his Blue Box cars, he didn't need to worry so much about the exact detail. I mean, that's the goofy part of the hobby is prototype modeling kind of put a curse on the manufacturers where, like, if you don't get it right, you're going to get crucified online.
Yeah.
And yet it wasn't that long ago that we were happy with what you could buy, for $15 and it was, 8 pieces to construct it. It was a take it or leave it.
There's a big difference between a modeler and a factory worker. We get a lot of comments about, I really want you to do this prototype. You just take this cab from this project and put it on this body, and it works. Well, those were designed decades apart. The mounting tabs aren't in the right place. You need a different walkway. The modeler would, if they had the cab, they get out their X-Acto knife and some sandpaper and they'd sand it, and they'd spend a couple hours and they'd make it work, maybe with some putty. We can't pay the factory to do handwork for hours.
Yeah. Geez.
I mean, you want to know pricing, man, that's going to go through the roof. They put 2 pieces together and put some glue on it and pass it down the assembly line.
And then it has to be. So what? I'll ask one last question and then we'll get to what's exciting and new at Athearn, because that's really the whole point of the conversation, although this has been 2 fabulously interesting podcasts. Don't you think, Kelly?
Yeah, I was going to ask a question just out of curiosity. Yeah.
Holy moly. Everybody.
Stop the presses.
Everybody turn off
news.
That's how you know it's a good podcast.
Yeah, everybody.
No, they did another 4 pages.
Yeah.
When Athearn retires a locomotive, are they retiring it because the mold is not working anymore, or they're going to improve it, or it's no longer going to be made, period?
I will answer this in 2 ways. One, the Athearn website uses the language retired.
Mm-hmm.
And that is baked in language to the software that runs the website. That is not words that we can choose.
Right.
So on the website, when a product is retired, that means we have announced it, we have built it, we have delivered it, and
Okay.
we are now out of it. So that SKU has been retired.
All right.
That doesn't mean we'll no longer make that locomotive again, no longer make that road name, possibly even make that road number, that specific unit.
Yeah.
Because sometimes when you get these special locomotives like the George Bush SD70 Ace, we'll do them multiple times because there's just that much demand for it.
Yeah.
But when it comes to older tooling, there does come a point where the tooling is you can usually repair or shim or fidget with tools to get them to keep running. But a lot of Athearn's tooling is 50 plus years old. And there comes a point when you just can't do it. And again, as a modeler, because I get the test shots, they say, well, we think we need you to retool this because we're not going to be able to use it. I get these test shots and I say, well, give me an X-Acto knife in half an hour and I can make it work. And I can. But the problem is the next step. The next step is not painting it with an airbrush. It's and decaling it. It's painting it and then creating masks that you mask off a product. Right. And if there's flash on that model that you've trimmed down and it's slightly uneven, that flash causes the mask not to sit correctly. So when you spray it, you get all kinds of overspray or underspray through the mask. So a lot of models are retired just because of the amount of flash on them. You need nice, crisp tooling shots in order to do the process well. And at that point, we'll look, is that model still relevant? Is it worth continuing to make? Does it have financial interest in today's market? Or should we look at retooling it? Not too long ago, we had both Athearn and Roundhouse had a FMC boxcar, or several flavors of them, just a 50-foot modern boxcar. And those toolings were getting long in the tooth. And they were also dimensionally inaccurate. They were about a foot too wide. And as we looked at that tooling and knew that it was coming to the end of its life, we said, well, what do? We basically created a brand new project and made, I think it's 9 brand new models. So 9 variations of the FMC boxcar to a more modern standard. So there's underbody detail. It's dimensionally accurate. We capture the difference between a 5077 and a 5347 cubic foot. There's different door arrangements. So that's how we approach projects. Like, is this something that we can just retool and put back out there, or do we need to start over? And some projects, I inherited the Ortner 5-bay rapid release car, which is a coal car. Again, that was a Roundhouse car. And it had been upgraded through the years. And we had announced it once and had to cancel it because the cost to produce it was much higher than we anticipated. And I looked at the project and I found the reason why. Made some modifications, and we would go to run it, and the factory says, oops, one of the molds broke. So, okay, well, let me research this quick. And I said, well, we can retool this part because this is a good project. We still need this car, but let's make a couple improvements and it's compatible with the rest of the parts. So we don't have to worry about it, and we can just make a little bit nicer model. So we did that. And then they go to do production again, and oops, another part broke. That happened twice more.
Wow.
And at that point, you're like, I was making all these parts to be compatible with the existing parts. And it would have been way easier if I could have started from scratch. But in the end, this car, I think we only have 1 sprue of parts from the original tooling, and everything else is brand new.
Brand new. Wow.
But it takes a while to do a project like that, because you do have to look and see, like, what am I doing to the cost of this? Am I making it more complex to build? Am I keeping it within the scope? Because as a brand that has 3 sub-brands, we have the Roundhouse, the Athearn, and the Genesis line, it's really easy to say, well, I want these modeling details on it. And that starts making your cars get more and more expensive and out of line of where you intended it to be.
And
So
how does that seem to work, the 3 different lines? Does that seem to, like, I'm looking right now just for fun, I'm looking at the 2600 covered hopper that's coming out in a couple of months. And I mean, these are absolutely beautiful. They're Genesis cars, and they're absolutely beautiful cars. And I think the list price, the manufacturer's list price is $54, $54.99. But man, these are beautiful cars. So how does has it worked? Because it seems to me that this 3-tiered system has been going for maybe like 10 years with Athearn. And does it seem to work, the 3-tier system?
that was one of the things that when I came into the company that I really wanted to iron out, because there's been a little bit of different philosophies about where the brands should be. At one point, the Roundhouse brand was going to be your transitional era, your diesel to steam transition era. So they put all the steam engines and old time equipment down there. But we had some really nice models like our Elko RS3 in the Roundhouse line. And it's a very nice model. And people just weren't looking at it because they thought, well, that's one of the cheap models. So even the customers didn't know what they were. I think it can be done well. I know a lot of other manufacturers have struggled with how to manage multiple detail levels. You definitely see the most dollars when you talk your most expensive items, but not everyone needs an entire freight train of Genesis freight cars.
Mm.
You'll want some filler cars, some cars that look right as they go by. And that's where our mid-tier Athearn line comes in. And it also allows us to use some of the older, less detailed tooling for stand-ins. You know, when these were tooled back in the day, we didn't consider all the options, and we just can't make some of them, and we don't feel like the market's there to make the investment to add that kind of tooling to some of these projects. So we use a little bit more liberty with the Athearn line. And unless you're a rivet counter, unless you've read it's wrong on the social media,
right?
You walk in the store and say, I like that boxcar. That boxcar looks cool. I want it.
Yeah.
Lots of customers like that.
How much is too much detail? I mean, when you put a locomotive and a car on the track and you're standing back looking at the scenery around it, and it looks good. And, I think too much detail is probably one of the main problems that we're getting from cost and everything. It just.
Well, yeah, I might agree with you, but the other thing that's really advanced is everyone carries a very high-powered camera in their pocket.
Yeah, that's true. And
the camera lens does not lie.
That's true.
And people love taking pictures or filming run-bys of trains, and that's where the details really pop. So there's a lot of interest in getting accurate models, and everyone has a passion. Everyone says, this is my favorite model, and I want you to do it right. And you need to know in the winter of 1977, someone ran into the fuel tank and dented it. So you need to have that detail.
We all know who did that, don't we, Kelly?
Yeah. That was.
But
oh, Jesus.
So I forgot where I was going there.
Well, I got a question for you, and then we're going to finish up with what's exciting in Athearn. But one of my bugaboos, or one of the things that irritates me, is, I built a purpose-built home for my model railroad in almost 40 years ago, 38 years ago, with a specifically no support beam or columns or anything at the train end of the basement. And at that time, buying, in the late 80s, early through the 90s, or maybe the early 90s, buying it before social media became a thing, buying undecorated locomotives or cars was easy. It was the thing. What was it that changed from being able to purchase undecorated rolling stock, either locomotives or cars, freight cars? What happened? Like, do you know what as a guy in the industry and a guy that studied the industry, like what was the turning point with that?
Well, this is a long answer. I think it's generational wealth. You talked about buying a house. One of the biggest changes that we're seeing right now is the younger generations can't afford to buy houses. They've all been squirreled away. Corporations are starting to buy them for Airbnbs and short-term rentals. Owning a house is no longer the American dream because it is so expensive. So now you're living in apartments and your space is smaller. You can't run an air compressor in an apartment without getting ratted out. So I think it's getting harder and harder for people to do modeling skills, and they have modeling activities, and they have to work in smaller spaces. So they're looking to see what they can spend their time on, what interests them in those smaller spaces, and having a dedicated area for a paint booth is a huge sacrifice for a lot of people who are just getting started. They might walk something out to the sidewalk with a rattle can and spray it, but I think that has a big contribution to why we're seeing undecorated models actually. There's a lot of people asking for them, but when we do offer them, there's very few sales.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. People ask.
And I've heard other manufacturers say that too.
Yeah. Yeah. That seems to be.
And when I say very few, and like not even a case quantity.
Well, yeah, exactly.
When we offer them.
That seems to be the going trend. And what was it? And do you know what happened in the manufacturing? Like, did somebody suddenly bolt upright one day and say, well, we got to stop making, undecorated locomotives? Because I can remember.
I mean, we're not Apple. We're not going to pull the headphone jack off a model just because we feel like it's what should be done. We follow the industry. If the sales are starting to dry up on it, we're going to take a serious look. And it's basically the market decided that undecks aren't desired anymore. It's not the manufacturers.
And it became a thing too that if you weren't modeling a prototype, you weren't doing it right there. There was a whole stretch of that happening too.
But like I was saying before with the AC4400, models are becoming very specific now. So you can't just get an undecorated model, paint it, and be correct. You want to make sure that, they use improved dreadnought ends on your boxcar instead of the originals when they rebuilt it.
And back in the day, you might have bought an undecorated locomotive or a car and then kit bashed it or added the particular details that were needed to be done to make it to that prototype, and then you would paint it in your whatever railroad. It wouldn't have to be a freelance. It would be, you've detailed that locomotive specifically for the railroad that you're modeling, and then you paint it in that paint scheme. And now that's available off the shelf. Something that's never been the case.
I was going to ask you, Marcus, because we were touched on, not every car needs to be a Athearn Genesis quality. Like you have, how many freight cars do you think you have on your layout?
That was a topic this weekend when I had some visitors here.
That was my phone. My phone was buzzing all the time. Like, can you believe
all the time? Wasn't it?
Can you believe how many freight cars Marcus has?
Yeah. Hey, Lionel, did you get an invite on that?
No, I didn't get an invite.
Oh man, they missed out on
Actually,
opportunity.
I gave my invite. I gave my pass to some guy from some southern guy from Alabama.
Yeah, I showed up and I got the "You're not Lionel."
That's not that strange, boy.
Yeah, the disappointment was palpable. They wanted to talk about NASCAR, and I was like, "What?"
Yeah, and yet, Marcus, I just got to finish this. And yet, all of a sudden, out of the clear blue sky, I get a text that says, "Hey, Chris Raymond says maybe we should all go to Talladega for a race. What do you think?" And I'm thinking, You're not Derek. Whoever is sending this message.
Who stole Derek's phone?
Yeah, who stole Derek's phone?
We were sitting it on the border in Concord, North Carolina, when we had that discussion about going to a NASCAR race, and Derek's the one that brought it up. He said he's actually getting interested.
Yeah, but then we got to teach him. And I was just listening to the one we had a few weeks ago with Otto, the Patreon. In other words, it's the Monday version of the Springfield Report, and we were explaining to Derek that he's got to have first he's got to have a T-shirt with some driver on it, number one.
Right.
And secondly, we've got to teach him that when the guy goes by, he has to stand up and wave his arms madly forward so the guy can see him as he goes by at 180 miles an hour. And, notice that Derek's supporting him.
I agree. We got to get him up to non-poser status when he actually appears in person. But otherwise, Derek, don't let him give you too much of a hassle. It works like this. Car goes vroom, goes real fast, turns left a lot of times.
It's always turning left.
You know what, Daniel?
Yeah.
You live in less than 50 miles from the Indianapolis Speedway. If you don't go to more of the events, I'm going to come down there and slap you.
Well, I deserve it. I mean, I do. It's one of those crazy things, it's kind of right in your backyard and you tend to ignore it because getting anywhere near that place in the month of May is just a madhouse. I mean, it's awesome, but it's a madhouse.
Well, you could go to the parade. You could go to the parade at least.
Oh, there's all kinds of great stuff. I mean, a day at the track while they're practicing is a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah.
It's still crazy busy, but it's a lot of fun.
Exactly. All right. How many cars do you have, Marcus? You've had time to count them up now.
Yeah. I think 537 might be on the railroad now. I don't know. Something like that. I've got a few hundred cars out there, and I think where you're going with this is looking for the detail level. No, not every car has to be detailed. Most of the cars, I just have to. If I'm buying a car, I want it to look right. It doesn't necessarily have to be 100% right, but I want it to have the correct appearance. Like the logo needs to be kind of right. The body style should be sort of right, but it's as long as it's representational, I'm good with it.
Okay, John, what's got you excited about Athearn these days? What's getting you all worked up about working for Athearn, and what's coming out that's got you excited?
Well, I am working on some next generation stuff. I think when Athearn releases this, the industry is going to step back and say, "Whoa, that's cool." So,
by next generation,
that's not all.
Okay, you can't tell us. Obviously, you can't give us specifics. But
I mean, think about like the generations of products. Like you've got the Athearn Blue Box that was an open pole motor on a die-cast frame with a light bulb in the cab, and then we had can motors, and then we had more die-cast frames and LEDs, and then sound. We're talking about that kind of generation.
Right, you're just excited about how it's
once you see it, you're not going to want to go back to the old stuff.
Really? Wow.
Ooh, nice.
And that's kind of a general discussion I've been thinking about for a while. It's like, how much better can this stuff get? But I guess, okay, this is a question we can talk about and you can answer without giving specifics. Is it generational because the electronics is improving, like the things you can do with electronics is starting to get mind-blowing, and B, the companies that make the tooling, they have better machines for making tooling. Like it seems like 3D printing just continues to get better and better and better and better, and everything gets better. Is it that kind of thing where you can't help but make it better because the products are the basic products are available to you?
Yeah, a little bit. Model trains will never be on the cutting edge of technology. And anybody who's ever programmed a CV will tell you that. One of the overarching requirements of this hobby is everything has to be backwards compatible. And that is a tough act to keep, because we do have 20, 30-year-old models that we still enjoy running right next to the new stuff. And how do you make them compatible? So we definitely look at other industries and wait until a technology is much more mainstream before adopting it into the model train industry. And things have definitely been moving down that road, that there's more available to us. The other thing is the model train industry is tiny. When you look at circuit boards, when we order circuit boards, we're in the absolute bottom rung of the MOQ tiered pricing. You look at Ford buying circuit boards for whatever they're building, and they're ordering hundreds of thousands to millions of pieces, and we're buying a couple thousand.
Well, and I understand this is going to be one of my rambling questions. And Kelly, tell me when I'm done, if you even understand what I'm saying.
Okay.
But it seems to me like the manufacturers and everybody in the hobby has this inferiority complex that, well, we don't order enough boards. We don't order enough of this stuff. We're so small. Our hobby is so small. We don't order enough of that, or we can't get enough of this. And this constant thing of the hobby is so small, And it's like, but like everybody knows I'm a NASCAR fan. I watch NASCAR. Out of the 43 cars in a race, 30 of them will have advertisements on. They'll be sponsored by companies I've never heard of. And I think the industry would do itself a great favor if it stopped selling itself short and talking about how small it is, because there's tons of companies out there that are small, they're like, I understand when you're ordering a particular piece or something, like Ford Motor Company orders a lot more than Athearn does. But I think that there's a lot of small businesses in the world and in North America where that's just part of the deal. Like, my business has 12 employees, but I got 12 employees that rely on their paycheck and the fact that I run it properly and they have a reliable paycheck. So I'm not so sure. I just feel like the model railroad industry has this inferiority complex, and the hobby itself does. Kelly, did that make any sense?
Oh,
yeah, a little bit.
It's true. The model railroading industry is tiny.
I'm sure it is. I'm sure it is, but it's a lot bigger than my business. It can order a lot more stuff than my business, and it's I understand it's tiny, but it's making a dent. I mean, there's people buying stuff, people buying $300 locomotives. Does anybody agree or disagree with it? Did any of that make any sense to anybody? Apparently not.
I get what you're saying in that, like, the sentiment is, kind of like a morbid woe is us. But I also understand where John's coming from, which is that it's kind of, well, I won't say the word I was going to say. The industry is very small in that they still have to go out and buy raw goods and intermediate goods. And when they're competing for talent, supplies, things like that, they are at the bottom rung in terms of the size and scope of their projects.
Yeah, I guess, I'm looking again at these covered hoppers, these 2600 cover hoppers, and it's like, okay, when my wife and I got together, her first Monte Carlo cost $3,000. Well, a Monte Carlo now costs $55,000, and when we were doing that, Athearn boxcars costs $699. Well, now they're $54.99. Like, nothing has really changed that way, I don't think. I used to be able to go to a Leaf game for $25.
You were also making $4 an hour. So you're right. It's relative. When those prices were really cheaper, you weren't making nearly as much as you do now.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, in relation to the industry is small. Well, sure, it is small, but it's still here. And the cars seem to get better, and the products seem to get continually better, and new products are introduced all the time. And I just think, I feel like that the hobby has an inferiority complex.
Well, to take it back to the top of the hour discussion, this is one of the changes that the industry needs to weather, is how do we increase the participation in the hobby? so that we can get a little bit more buying power and a little bit more security for the manufacturers, and just get more product out there. And part of it's the NMRA 35,000 member goal, and what they're trying to do with the youth out there. One of the projects I'm working on with Athearn is specifically targeted towards that entry-level market.
Oh, cool. See, I think that's important. That's important.
Yeah, so that's, I mean, I'm not allowed to talk about it, but I have some really cool stuff I've been working on that hasn't been announced yet for the entry-level market that I'm really excited about. And then there's all these other little projects that are practically passion projects for me. And I think if you talk to most manufacturers, a lot of the stuff that gets made is because someone wanted it.
Right. And
they were able to build a business case for it.
And I understand that there's some things you can't talk about, but Derek, Daniel, Marcus, Kelly, do you think he understands that nobody's listening?
Oh yeah. Well, I'm on the show, so I don't know if there's anyone left. But I would be amiss if I didn't talk about some of our product.
Yes, so go ahead. Tell us what you're excited about.
So I started a project, and I called it the concession caboose. And it's taking existing caboose bodies that Athearn had, and it's adding details to make roadside attractions. So a lot of cabooses, as they retired, became coffee shops and pizza places and ice cream shops, concessions. So I created a bunch of accessories so you can buy this model, and they're going to be beautifully decorated as different businesses, or we even have one that's decorated as an American flag for a Chamber of Commerce. They have lit lights on the outside. They have this beautiful signboard, like the arrow signs you see by the side of the road. So I'm really excited about that because it's just a little bit of an extension from our product line. Or like the Bonanza airplane that Athearn used to have, which we can no longer call it a Bonanza for intellectual property reasons. But that tooling was getting old, and they sent me the test shots, and like, this is the kind of thing you'd buy at a Dollar Tree. Like, this isn't a model. This is a toy. But trained people are also usually airplane people. So I looked at the catalog of Horizon Hobbies contacts, the owner of Athearn, and saw that we had contacts with North American, and we had drawings for the North American T-28 Trojan. So I made that to replace the old V-tail airplane that Athearn have, and it's a beautiful model. I love it.
Yeah, I see. I saw it.
I spent too much time.
I saw it on, and I'm looking at it right now. Actually, I went to Railroad Model Craftsman. That was one of the pictures Otto had put up on the Facebook page for RMC, and it's like, that is a cool idea. That is cool, very cool model. Yeah.
And when I designed it, I made sure that I spent a lot of time looking at pictures of people who had torn them down for restoration and accidents and all that, so that when it was on a flat car as a flat car load, where it came apart, it was correct, and it looked correct when it was sitting on the flat car.
Well, that's cool. See, like, I think you could make a ton of that kind of stuff that would be relatively inexpensive. That, like, I think it's like you just need stuff, like you say, your caboose conversion kits. Like, that's not going to be terribly expensive. And it'll be something people can buy when they go into because a big part of hobbies that people don't want to admit, but it's the absolute truth, and I know it applies to everybody here in the room, is that a big part of the hobby is buying stuff based on your dreams of what you're going to do. So you'll see something, you'll purchase it, and you go, I'm going to do X with this. And then you get it home, and you look at it for a couple of days, and you stick it on the shelf because you know that someday you're going to do X with that particular project.
Yep.
And then, the pile of stuff on the shelf grows and grows and grows because someday you're going to do X with each one of those things. And a lot of the hobby is just the magic of the hobby. You look through the magazines and see the pictures of the fantastic layouts, and it's like, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. And, and I think a big part of it is if we could get more people building basic models, because I've talked about this quite a bit since I had my heart attack and I was having trouble with dexterity. I started building, I had a stash of 124 scale NASCAR stock car models that I started building. Like I threw the first two in the garbage because they weren't very good. The third one's not bad. And then I started to realize just building stuff is the fun of it. Just accomplish, you apply a couple of parts. Marcus, you jump in on this because you got a layout. You're always building stuff, or you're trying to.
Yeah. Trying.
I don't know. What I saw this weekend looked a lot more than trying.
Yeah, exactly.
If that's the part of the hobby you're interested in, yeah. There's some people who love the electronics.
Yes, exactly.
LCC between you and me,
exactly.
But some people get really excited about that, and some people like operations.
But that's the whole.
They'll live on a plywood empire because all they care about is the fun of the puzzle.
And there's nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with having a plywood central. But still, those people are going to be buying boxcars and locomotives or whatever. Like this plane thing is a perfect example, or your caboose conversion kits. That's what you should probably.
So as a manufacturer, we have to make sure that we're catering to all the potential customers out there. The people who want good running, good sounding, accurate, or the parts that look period correct, or the more durable pieces that get handsy and you hand off to your kids. We want to offer all that.
Yeah, you know what? When you get those caboose conversion things done, send me a couple of those and a case of boxcars, and I'll create a couple of photographs.
Sure. I'll ship them FedEx as soon as the invoice clears.
Yeah, there you go.
I will say, I think that companies like Athearn and manufacturers like that are doing injection molding, where those molds are so expensive. I think you guys are in a tough spot. And you're right. You have to be innovative ahead of time, or you can end up in a really bad spot. But things like the caboose conversion. I mean, I have it's a few miles from my house, but I have a coffee shop like that. It's an L&N caboose, and it's been built right into the side of a building. Actually, they built a building onto the caboose. The caboose was a barber shop for years and years. The guy passed away. His daughter wanted to open a coffee shop, so she incorporated her dad's caboose barber shop into the coffee shop. There's memorabilia, from its days as the barber shop, but you can go in and sit and have a cup of coffee in there. It's great stuff like it because you do see that. But yeah, it's tough. It's tough, I would think, to pivot quickly in that industry where molds are a thing. So yeah, I think it's a difficult business. Somebody just pumping out 3D printed things can change quite quickly. There's no molding.
That's another one.
Yeah, and that's what we're seeing. Like, we're keeping our eyes open and checking out technologies and materials. Some of our newest models actually have a brand new material that they're made out of.
Nice.
Which it's a little bit of an experiment. We're satisfied with the quality, but like 3D printing is not there for mass market. It's too fragile. It's too delicate. And they take too long to make.
Right.
That's for small cottage industries where you just have to have that prototype. There's tons of models out there where one model existed. A major manufacturer probably won't ever touch that, but it's perfect fodder for a 3D printer. And where we're using nice 3D printing is rapid prototyping. So now we're checking our designs before we cut steel.
Oh, I would think that would be quite helpful and a lot less expensive.
It can be, but funny. No, I'm not going to say that. Sidebar. Another product I'm really excited about, it's patent pending, is our new car knocker line of products. So if you don't know what a car knocker is the person in the railroad that fixes broken cars. And I love gondolas for some reason. They're one of my favorite freight cars. There's just all kinds of flavors out there. But they get beat up, especially when they start getting used in scrap service. They just get beat.
Or soldering irons dropped on them.
Yeah. when Railgun realized that all their inherited gondolas were wearing out and they couldn't rely on them, they sent orders to 5 different manufacturers to build essentially the identical gondola. And there's thousands of these things out there, and they were designed to be beat. They were designed to be bent and distorted. And they still run like that because they're safe. And when you buy a freight car kit, you have 90-degree corners and straight.
Oh yeah,
sides.
crisp lines. Yeah.
So the first car I designed in this car knocker series is a Thrall prototype gondola, 52 foot, and it's hogged. The sides are bowed out, the ends are bowed out, the sides are dented from the inside to the out, so you get to see the same dent on the inside as you do the outside. But I kept the bolster and the couplers level. So it's going to run like every other car in the layout, but it's going to look like it's at the end of its life.
That's a great idea.
That's so cool.
And I had my thought that people would love it, but it was a tough sale, and I was able to convince the powers that be that we should give it a go, and it has done very well for us.
Well, that's the kind of cool car that when you put it in your consist, your freight mix, you got box cars or containers, whatever era you're running there, you have the big bulky boxy thing, and then you have this beat to snot gondola that's rolling in there, and it serves as a nice focal point. You kind of got this, oh yep, same, which the real railroads like that. And then you have this great car that you're just like, oh, I got to stop and follow that as it goes along and look at all the details. Kind of a hero car in the mix of everything else.
Yeah. Well, 70 years ago, I mean, you look at like the modeling of John Armstrong when people were building stick cars from wood.
Mm-hmm.
It was really common to make these distorted cars, and I think John Armstrong has several very famous cars. Yeah. They're really cool to look at, and that was very common. But since we shifted to plastic, it's not as common anymore.
Well, no, and people don't inherently set out to design a kit or a ready to run that looks like it's been beat into oblivion already. They were doing
the argument. The argument that I've heard, like, well, you're just doing one body style, so you're going to tell me that every body is dented the same way, and it's like, well, if you wanted a dented gondola, you're going to start with a normal gondola, and every single normal gondola is built the same way right now. Right. So I look at models like, this is your 90% starting point. What 10% are you going to add to it?
Right.
Are you going to do some weathering to it? Because you can weather a normal gondola and it looks used and it looks great. You apply that to one of these car knockers and it's going to look amazing.
And
you can get variation there.
This is right up your alley, Derek, because one of the easiest ways to reshape plastic is with a soldering iron.
Sure is. I am.
Don't hold it there too long, though.
It is. But the funny thing is, specifically with gondolas, is you have a false floor and a weight. And if you push out the side, you see where that false floor is because you can't get that dent low enough. And that's one of the things I was able to overcome with this design is I can make the whole side panel look dented regardless of where that false floor is.
And where is this going to fit into the price? One of these 3 levels, is it? Where does it fit in?
So this is an Athearn level car, so it's our mid-tier. We're only offering them as our primed for grime line, which whenever we have a product that's primed for grime, it's an additional $5 over the retail price of the other cars. And that's because there's a few more steps of decoration in it. And that's really where a lot of the cost of the models is in the decoration. But we're getting it ready because there's the dented and dirtied model. I mean, you wouldn't see glossy paint on this. So everything is going to come out with a flat coated paint ready for your pastels or chalks or airbrushing.
John, when will those cars be sort of coming out? Like, do you have like this year, next year? Because I'm excited to see them now. I want to buy some. So I'm wondering when.
Well, they're not
have
going
an idea.
Derek, they're not going to be just gray.
No, I know, but I like beat up gondolas. I used to live a couple blocks from a steel mill, and I used to love looking at these decrepit gondolas that were on the siding for scrap service. I mean, you would just wonder, like, how, this is the end of the life. Like, how you could see in and out of the car and from every angle, like just fist size holes in the side of it, and it was still in service. They're really cool, so I want to get some.
I signed off on the design before the Amherst Mile Railroad show, and I had a 3D printed sample at the show. I believe decorated samples are going to be worked on as soon as our factories are back from Chinese New Year.
Cool.
So I would expect later this year is when we'll be delivering these.
That's exciting. Okay, cool.
Get
your pre-orders in now.
Get your pre-orders in now. Exactly. All right, that's
the pre-order window is closed, so definitely get your orders in and find what's available.
Wow, Jesus. All right, that's it. We're done. We could go for another half an hour, but we're stopping right now. Kelly?
Yes, Lyle.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
And who's our sponsor?
White Rose Hobbies in York, Pennsylvania.
At 4401 Market Street.
Yeah, West Market Street.
Market Street.
Just down, go east.
Just down the road from?
The Benjamin Franklin RV Park.
There you go. Perfect. All right. Can you give out our email address?
Yes. If you want to reach us by email, you can reach us at modellerslife@gmail.com. And that's one L. Modeler is one L as Athearn Locomotive, not two L's like Kelly needs a job.
No, come on. That's a cop.
I feel like we've been here a lot.
Yeah, we've been there. Come on. That's two L. Like, you know what? That's two L's like H.O. Thrall high-sided.
There you go.
Yeah.
I mean, how hard was that? That's two L's like extra useless. All right. And if you didn't catch that address, you can go to our website, amodellerslife.com, and there's a widget there where you just fill in the text, your title and your text, and hit send, and it automatically goes to our mailbox. And let's see what else. Oh, yeah. And if you like this podcast, which is on the free channel, because we're very honored to have Jon Stackpole from Athearn, the lead bottle washer and the lead project guy, the guy that looks after projects. What is your title again?
Master Cat Wrangler.
Okay, Master Cat Wrangler. And so if you enjoyed this podcast, which is on the free channel, but you'd like twice as much podcasting every week, you can go to our Patreon channel and sign up for just a few cents a day and join our Patreon channel. And then if you move up to the t-shirt level, you are now in the game that is literally sweeping the nation and sweeping the globe. And it's called, Hey Dude, Where's My Shirt? Because everybody in the t-shirt level gets a t-shirt that's only available each year, once a year, that's only available to Patreon members with a bunch of stickers and stuff. And the problem there is the guy that's in charge of sending out the t-shirts is useless. Let's see. That's it. I think that's it. I think we're done. Oh, and remember when you go to whiterosehobbies.com, ask for Tom or Ryan and tell them Lionel sent you. I'm not sure what that'll do, but maybe it'll do something for you. It'll at least annoy them. Actually, I don't think you can annoy Tom. Is that possible? Is Tom annoyable? I don't think so.
I don't think so. He's too cheery and optimistic.
Yeah, he's too cheery for us.
We'll change it. Don't worry. We're working on it.
All right, that's it. Are you ready? So this time, John, we just need you to say something witty at the appropriate moment.
Got it.
Okay. So remember, a Modeler's Life podcast is considered marginally adequate by 6 out of 10
gullible product managers. That's gullible with 2 L's.
It's another Lincoln Homer.
Whoa.
Nice.
Wow.
Kelly's out of a job again.
Yeah, really. And
Kelly's getting downsized.
John did that with his best radio voice.
When I work a job, the company goes out of business or gets sold.
You know what we got to do is we got to buy Kelly a dictionary.
Yeah, definitely. A double L dictionary.
Double L dictionary.